welcome to Kingsley Primary School's Roundtable. My name is Louisa Williams, and I am the principal at Kingsley School. You may hear us during our conversation at this roundtable use the phrase Kingsley or Kingsley School, and once you become familiar with us, you'll understand why we say that too. Today I have three panelists with us. I have one alumni and two current parents. You can expect today to hear candid conversation about Kingsley School, how parents view the school, their interactions at the school, how their kids enjoy the school, and a lot more. So I welcome you and invite you to listen along and learn something new about us, and hopefully we will have a further conversation with you should you be interested in joining Kingsley School. So I will hand it over to our alumni and I will ask her to introduce herself.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Natasha Bryan, and I am an alumni parent. My daughter, Celise, used to attend Kingsley Primary. She started Kingsley Primary in junior kindergarten and continued for quite a few years before eventually switching over to the public school system. I am always happy to be a part of the conversation. I keep coming back. I am a board member as well. And so I was honored to be asked to be part of this conversation. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And we will head over to one of our current families. One of you are just going to have to jump in. How about we start with Erin?
Hi, I'm Erin. My son started at Kingsley this past year in senior kindergarten, and my daughter will be joining in the pre-K program next year.
Thank you.
I'm also excited to be part of this conversation.
Thank you. And Jessica?
Hi there. So my name is Jessica, and my son Liam started at Kingsley this year in grade 4. And I too am excited to be here to be sharing.
I'm so glad that we are all excited. I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's interesting to hear insight to specific questions, and I think that our viewers will also find it insightful and interesting. So without further ado, I will commence in asking Natasha a number of questions and give her ample time to respond. So Natasha, my first question for you is, what did you appreciate most about Kingsley during your time there? And how has your perspective on that changed now that you have some distance from the school?
All right, great question. Well, I think there are many things actually that I really appreciated about Kingsley while we were there. But one of the, I would say, core pieces that stands out is Kingsley's student-centered approach to learning and working with children. I myself am an educator as well. I teach at the University of Toronto, and we teach a lot about that, a student-centered or client-centered approach, and the importance of that in meeting the needs very holistically of the children that one works with. And so to me, that stood out tremendously with Kingsley. And what does that mean? What does that look like? Student-centered approach, to me, that looks like a few things. One is the one-on-one discussions with educators. The faculty at Kingsley is very accessible and very open and very inviting. So it's not that you have to wait long periods of time or try to chase down an educator. They're very available. And that was really helpful, especially when my daughter just started school and it was a completely new experience for her and for me as well as a parent. To have that was priceless, really. Two other pieces that stand out around student-centered approach would be the holistic component of Kingsley. So Kingsley not only caters towards the child's mind, which is important, but they cater to the whole person, the development of the mind, body, and spirit of the child. So nothing's really left out. And I think that that is hard to find these days and is very critical for the development of children. And I would say, last but not least, with the student-centered approach, would be creating learning goals that are challenging, but are doable. So there's this feeling of success that comes at the end of them that will build confidence and does build lasting confidence in children. And to me, that's absolutely what stood out.
Thank you, Natasha. Moving on, I'm going to ask you, to the best of your knowledge, what most differentiates Kingsley from others?
For myself, what differentiates Kingsley, that again, there's so much to be said. It's really hard to narrow this down to a few things, but what I think about, because like I had mentioned in the introduction, my daughter has since transferred into public school. And so I have two perspectives, one of the public school system and one of Kingsley private school system. And to me, there are like some huge and significant differences. I find, as I mentioned, student-centered approach and all of the things I outlined with the first question. In relation to that, in public school, I would say that there's often a struggle to meet basic standards of education. And I think that has to do with high numbers and teacher burnout, my personal opinion. And so I feel like it tends to have this essence of survival versus thriving. And that is a big point in a difference between the two of them. And so with public schools, in addition, they're very overwhelmed. And again, with the ratio of educators to children, there's a lot of children who are sort of left on their own to try to figure things out, left on their own in the schoolyard. And there's a lot of exposure if we stray away a little bit from the education piece. There's a lot of exposure to bullying. There's a lot of exposure to very crass language and different forms of violence, subtle and overt, right? And so what I really appreciated about Kingsley, in contrast, is Kingsley has a zero tolerance policy when it comes to anti-bullying and things like that. But not only that, I found that that policy didn't really have to be enacted. Why? Because of the foundation that Kingsley builds with the children and the parents, a sense of community that children just want to be kind to one another. And when you're kind to one another, it really makes for a positive learning environment, because all children are, inherently intelligent and curious, but will they thrive in an environment that's dangerous or where bullies exist? That's very, very hard. But when you have an environment like Kingsley that's very supportive and kind and compassionate, then you'll find and you'll see, as I saw, our children thrive and they do very well. And that's what stands out in terms of looking at the differences.
Wow, thank you for that, Natasha. If the school were to be represented as a single person, what would its personality be like? Now this is a tough one. You've got three words. You've got 3 words to figure out this personality. And a lot of us have been trying to do this for a lot of years. So I'm so excited to hear this. 3 words to describe Kingsley as a single person. And if you can, why did you choose those words?
Okay, and that is very challenging and very concise. Okay, I'm gonna have to put on my concise hat. So I think the first trait, I guess, would be critical thinker. Critical thinker because I feel like Kingsley faculty welcomes not just the idea of challenging students to grow, but challenging themselves as well to grow and embrace new ideas. I noticed in some educational paradigms that I've been seeing in the public school system, I feel like there's some educators who feel threatened when children either question the methods of teaching, question the content of what's being taught. However, I find in my experience with Kingsley, that's the opposite. And so because faculty welcome the questions and welcome the curiosities, it fosters critical thinking, and that critical thinking is carried over for all the years of my daughter's experience in public school systems, she's able to question things. She's able to think about things from different perspectives and have the confidence to do that. So critical thinker. The second one would be compassion, a compassionate and empathetic person. Because, I think the staff, the whole community is very empathetic. It's not you're over here and I'm over there, and you're over here. It's a sense of oneness. There's a unity. There's not that gap, and there's a sense of personal, there's a very personal relationship that happens between staff and students, and staff and families. And so I think that compassionate sense of being really, really helps children to as well build that confidence. And not only that, it helps children to be able to mirror what compassion and empathy look like. Because that's one thing to say something in education, this is what A, B, C, D, but it's another when you role model that and you can see it in action. Because sometimes theory is hard to translate, but when you have theory in action, that's what adds a different spin to it. So compassion and empathy are really, really, two pieces that really are strong and omnipresent with everybody in the Kingsley family, which is what we would call it, the Kingsley family. And last but not least would be a positive strengths-based person, because you can have the glass half empty or glass half full, as we would say, right? Or the bucket, as we talk about, is your bucket, full today? Is your bucket empty? So different sort of metaphors to thinking about it and looking at this. But I would say that Kingsley represents strengths-based because, all students struggle at times with different things. Maybe there's emotional struggles, social struggles, intellectual struggles. We have them as adults. Children certainly have them as well. And so instead of, phrasing those struggles in, a pathological way or pathologizing the children in a negative way, no, we frame and reframe and pull out those strengths. And again, it feeds into that baseline theme of building confidence, life-lasting confidence. And so children are better able to overcome their obstacles and have the courage to do so when they're nurtured with a positive and strengths-based approach to learning. And so I would say those are my three, it's really hard, but three personality or characteristic traits that I would assign to Kingsley if I had to.
Wow, those were very interesting. I'm sure if you asked 10 people, they'd have 10 different things to say.
100%.
And it's hard to narrow it down, but that was wonderful. I love that. And I like
Thanks.
that critical thinking and I like those words. Really great.
Mm-hmm.
So here's another question for you, Natasha. What
Sure.
would families find most surprising about the school?
Most surprising about the school, I think when I think about this, what I would say families would find most surprising about Kingsley is that what you see presented to you, whether that's on the website, in conversation with yourself as the principal, in any outreach or marketing materials, is what you get. So oftentimes I find I've worked within a lot of not-for-profit organizations over the years, and different organizations. All organizations have their mandates and their mission statements and staple things that you come across. However, what I have noticed is that there are quite a few times where they don't synchronize to practice. And so I think what parents or families would be, I would say, pleasantly surprised with is to find out when you actually, make that commitment to joining the Kingsley family and jump in, you will find that what you see, for example, on the website, when I go to the website, the first thing I see, children are seen, heard, and respected. So you see that, and it's not just something to try to reel you in. It's something that you're going to experience and your children are going to experience. And I think that, to me, that speaks to integrity. And so I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by the integrity and the synchronicity of the words that are spoken and put out there on social media, wherever, and what you see in your everyday experience and interaction with Kingsley.
Wonderful. Thank you. So with all that said, and I'm still trying to digest all the great stuff that you have said about Kingsley School, and it's enlightening for me as well, because being someone that works there all day long, I live and breathe it, but having the feedback from families it's priceless, honestly. Which is why sometimes when families are interested in joining the school, I have them call another family, right? Because, and this is probably why we're doing this roundtable, because there's no better person to explain to a parent or parents coming into the school making a school choice than other parents that are either living it or have lived it. So this is wonderful to hear.
Absolutely, 100%. And again, speaking of this roundtable, what also parallels to the idea of integrity is none of this is rehearsed. So just to be clear to the audience is that, you are asking these questions and, we were exposed to what some of the questions could be, but you weren't privy to our answers. So this is the first time you and all of us are hearing what each of us has to say. And that goes to speak to the confidence of how the school functions. There's no need to edit or, review it ahead of time because of, and
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah, it is. It's this is
Like that,
such a
that's,
great opportunity.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love it. I have one more question for you, Natasha.
Sure.
What advice would you give to students that are just entering the school?
I would say come into the school with an open heart and an open mind. I know entering into a new space can be nerve-wracking. Again, my daughter, when she started, was entering into JK, and she's very shy and had some social anxieties and was more introverted by nature and would hold on to my leg at the beginning, again, all of the things I spoke of, the warmth, the compassion, the empathy, the holistic approach, all of these things almost give you permission to be able to enter into that space with an open mind and open heart, and allowing yourself to be challenged, to grow, to ask questions in a safe and nurturing environment. And last but not least, have fun, because education is also about having fun. It should be a pleasant experience, which it is at Kingsley. Have fun. And PS, anybody entering into Kingsley now in the near future will be able to enjoy an amazing play space, because that was my one thing over time, if I had to say was a bit of a critique, would be, man, it would be so great. The school is great. Everything is lovely about how it functions, the core values. But what is missing is access to like a recess play space. But guess what? Kingsley, the Kingsley board, the Kingsley staff, the Kingsley families have come together, and we have the most phenomenal play space that is near ready. So I am so excited for the families who are currently there and who are going to join the Kingsley family, because, I'm not even going to see, you'll see for yourself. It's awesome.
I'm telling you, I just finished telling someone that I might pitch a tent back there and just stay there for a couple of days. The labor of love. And you mentioned it. It's staff, it's families, it's
Yeah.
alumni, it's everyone that is connected with Kingsley has been a part of and had their hand in this
Right.
playground. And it's a really special place.
It's very special.
I can't wait
And
to do
so
the ribbon
exciting.
cutting.
Yes, I know.
Great.
So exciting.
Very great. Well, there we have it. There is a perspective from a former parent who had her daughter at the school, and I heard so many incredible things like compassion, empathy, whole child, critical thinking, lots of really great words that our audience can take away and make notes about. And if that seems like the kind of place they'd like to be, then look no further. But we will look
Absolutely.
further. Yeah, right? We will look further because we are moving on to our current families. And this is very interesting because we'll get a different perspective and a different set of questions. So, Erin, I'm going to start with you and ask you, why did you choose Kingsley originally? And in what ways is the school what you expected? And in what ways is it not?
Okay, yeah, so we live pretty close to Kingsley, so we always kind of saw it in passing. And when it came time for my son to move from daycare into JK, we kind of checked it out and we were super impressed by the school. We attended one of the music concerts, which was just fabulous. I was blown away. And then we were just kind of torn. I think we hesitated to go against the grain, and we're in a great school district. So we thought, okay, we owe it to ourselves. Let's try the public school. And we committed to that decision. We felt really good. We didn't go kind of half in, and it just didn't work. My son had a really hard year, and I'm still kind of emotional about it, but he was this really energetic, happy kid. He'd been in daycare since age 1. He'd transitioned really easily through all the different toddler, preschool. We'd had 0 issues. He made friends. We still keep in touch with some of that group. And then suddenly he was really sad. He was withdrawn. He didn't want to go to school every day. When COVID hit, he came home every day with stomach aches. He was falling asleep on the couch. And when we moved to online learning, he kept saying, I don't want to go back to school. I just want to do mom school. And trust me, mom school is not that good. So I was kind of like,
It's great.
Over the summer, I was racking my brain, like, what am I going to do? I have to fix this. And, is it just the before and after care? Because we found with the public school, the full day kindergarten, it was a really long day. And a lot of the day was not the teacher in the classroom. It was the before and after care where there wasn't a lot of programming. And even within the school day, still at lunch and at recess, there was a lot of unsupervised time where conflicts would come up, and there was just no one to help really resolve those issues and teach that conflict resolution and how to form good friendships. And so there were really some gaps. And then I saw online Kingsley was hosting this Zoom session with information about COVID and return to school. And I kind of went, oh yeah, I forgot about Kingsley. And so I joined the Zoom session, and I just felt a sense of relief. Like everything was so well thought out, and then smaller class sizes, clear protocols, and we just needed a change. And so we made the change. And I mean, everyone knows as a parent that you make a lot of decisions, and you always want to make the right decision for your child, and you question and question. And this is one decision that I just feel so good about. I have never looked back. If anything, I'm so thankful that we made this leap, because the change in my son is just incredible. I feel like we got him back. Like he's back to his happy, energetic self. He loves going to school. He's formed meaningful friendships, and we couldn't be happier. In terms of what I expected, Kingsley, they brand themselves as the school with the great big heart. That is absolutely true. From the moment that you set foot in the school, even just for a tour, you feel that caring. I think compassion came out earlier. And it's not just about getting to know the student, they get to know your whole family. Like instantly, everybody knew my son, they knew my daughter, they knew both my husband and I. And you could just see that caring, they really walk the talk, and it made all the difference. It set the groundwork for learning, because if you don't have that feeling of safety and that feeling of comfort and care, then the learning can't take place. So I would say that was as expected. And I think what wasn't expected to me was how far beyond the curriculum Kingsley was able to go. Because for us, we saw the JK and the SK, the full day kindergarten, it's pretty much the same curriculum. So we saw it in the public school, and then we saw how Kingsley delivered it. And it was night and day, the extent that they could go with the various themes, with the enrichment activities, with how hands-on some of the learning could be. So I knew there would be more, but I was so impressed by how much more. Every day, every week, there were these additional themes, and you could see that drove the engagement. And my son learned exponentially more in 1 year at Kingsley, even with a good percentage of the year being online than with COVID than he did the previous year.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Erin. I'm going to ask Jessica the exact same question. I'm going to repeat it for you, Jessica. Why did you choose Kingsley originally? In what ways is the school what you expected? And in what ways is it not?
Those are big questions to ask. Much like Erin, I started off in the public school, although my son was in it for 4 years. So we started in JK, and we actually put him in French immersion, thinking that would be a really nice additional skill to be able to offer him. And, I will say parents know their kids much better than most of the time the schools do. And we suspected there was some challenges with Liam when it came to some learning, and the school was like, we don't even look at that till grade 3. So he struggled through French immersion for a couple of years. And to your point, Erin, you could sort of see his confidence changing, and he got quieter. And there was a good school. It was a good public school, but there was bullying. There were challenges. There were things that there just weren't enough people to get to. And I remember we moved him to English in the middle of grade 1 after I had to sort of force it. I had to say, like, he needs to move. He's not getting the benefit of French, and we need to switch it now before it's too late and there's too much sort of behind. So we switched him, and that helped a little bit, but the school system just wasn't set up to help him catch up. And so in grade 2, my husband and I paid for private testing because we were still very convinced that there was some challenges. And sure enough, Liam tested really well in lots of things, but he was diagnosed with a learning disability around reading and writing, specifically phonetically. So in a school where everyone's learning how to sound words out, he doesn't learn that way. So they said, well, we'll have to set you up for an IEP, but that could take 6 to 8 months before we have somebody set up to help you. So then we paid for some private support to come into the house and work with him, for an hour or 2 a week, which is just not enough. And so we really were just struggling, and he was struggling, and kids were making fun of him because kids are mean when they're, 8-year-old boys are lovely, but not fun sometimes. And so he wasn't happy, and he felt bad about himself. And it was at the beginning of when COVID was happening, my husband and I said, like, we need to look at a change because he can't go back to a school where he can't have an IEP. He wasn't allowed to change classrooms. So this was going to be another year of him not getting the support he needed. And honestly, the person who did the assessment for him said to us, if you can find the right learning environment for him now, he will learn how to learn his way and he'll be fine. If you keep him in a public school system, there's a chance that he will need help all the way through into high school because he won't learn how to learn his way. So we went looking, and to be honest, ours was we're in the area too. Ours was a bit of a fluke. I came across Kingsley, really liked what it represented. And so I set up a call with Louisa and went in. And same thing, Erin, I instantly, as soon as we were in, I really liked the vibe. The first thing I saw on the wall was the wall of the mirrors and who's responsible for your actions. And I was like, I want to take this wall home with me. I don't think my son liked the wall a whole lot at the beginning, but he's learned to appreciate it. So for me, that was we were spending money and a lot of our time, we weren't getting any results, and he was not a happy kid because of it. So we switched starting in grade 4 into Kingsley, and he was nervous about changing schools. He had a lot of his friends there, although I would say I don't know that he had the best concept of what friends are supposed to be, because a lot of kids were mean and he thought that that's kind of just what friends did sometimes. And so I remember him coming home the first day and I was so nervous, and he said, I only made 4 friends. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, there's only 4 kids in my class. Like he was just so excited that everybody got along right away. And I just watched him flourish this year. I watched him do so well in subjects that he was already doing well in. So he was allowed to sort of keep excelling in those, which was great, and encouraged to do that. But he did really well with his reading, enough so that I had to check in with the teacher and say, like, this is real, right? Like these marks are legitimate marks that he is earning. And she said, he is reading at a grade 4 level. He is reading slower, but he is there. And that, there's not going to be high school support needed. because he is catching up, because he is able to learn the way he learns and get the support and get the one-on-one time, which was great. And I had constant conversations with the teacher about things that we could do together between home and school to just keep help reinforcing, which is also something that it's not possible in a public school because there's too many. He had 23 kids in his class in grade 3. He had 16 boys or 16 girls, the rest were boys. All of the boys had learning disabilities, every single one. So he was like 8th on the list of people to get support, and it just wasn't available. And speaking of French immersion, Liam actually won an award this year at Kingsley for his efforts in French, for his commitment and his efforts. He came home and was like, I thought it was a mistake. Like, he thought that they had made a mistake and put the wrong person's name on it. He was so thrilled. It's on the fridge, it's still on the fridge. And he's proud of it. Like, these are accomplishments that I don't think he thought he was ever going to be able to make. So I've seen a huge change in him, confidence-wise. Definitely, as far as independence and responsibility goes, I feel a lot better now with him going into grade 5, knowing and feeling that he's prepared for his future education. I mean, I wish Kingsley went to grade 12, but I'm working on grade 6, Louise. I'm working on grade 6. I'm going to work on the parents this year.
And we're listening.
Yes. So for me, it exceeded my expectations. I think the only thing I thought it might have been that it wasn't was, and the only concern I had about private school to begin with was I was worried it might be a bit too cliquey, or be a bit too upper brow, and I didn't want to lose my son's ability to be included and inclusive with every group and different types of people. And that was one of the things that I was really happy to see, how inclusive it was, and how open and communicative the team and the school is about everything. So yeah, to me, there's only pluses. And I've said this to Louisa before, but like, to me, this changed my son and our family.
I have to say, I find this fascinating. I mean, I've spoken to all of you on different occasions, and it makes me so happy to hear that, Jessica. And I know from hearing already all 3 of you, Natasha included, the impact. And we were in a year of COVID. We're just coming out of a year of pandemic, and for you guys to be able to say that, it's very touching. So I so appreciate all 3 of you, your candidness. It's why I'm at the school, and it's, for me, this conversation reinforces my love for this place. So I'm going to continue because people need to hear more about this. Really, we kind of joke, and Natasha will know what I say this, because we call ourselves the best kept secret in Etobicoke. So hopefully this will unleash that, because there's a lot of information coming out here. So the next question, I'm going to jump back to Erin. And what is the biggest impact that the school has had on your child?
Yeah, so I think Jessica just mentioned this in regards to her son, but I would say for sure it's his confidence. I've seen his confidence come back and his joy come back, and he is a happy kid again. I reiterate, I feel like I got my son back. Like, when I think back to when we were finishing JK and he was sad and withdrawn and he just was not himself. And if you know my son, he really just exudes life. He has a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm, and we cannot keep up with him at all. But I feel like now he has that back, and it's just such a blessing. And I would say on top of that, it's all the other skills that you're receiving at Kingsley. Like, it goes, and I think when you first enter the school system, you're thinking about the academics, like the reading, the writing, the math, those core skills. And then I realized, kind of going through the JK experience, that all of that would come and it didn't matter. And what mattered first and foremost was that emotional intelligence, the social skills, the character development, feeling safe. And that if you didn't have that, you couldn't gain any of the other skills. And I think if we look at our world today and what it takes to really be successful, it is that additional layer of emotional intelligence, of social skills. I mean, computers are outpacing us. They can do math, they can do spelling, they can do all of that. And we have to learn that. It's important. But what will take you to the next level is if you also have that character development. And in my son, I can really see like his leadership is coming out. And I still remember in our first teacher parent interview that was just in November. And if I think back to my public school first teacher parent interview, my reaction was either this teacher doesn't know my son, and my son was only in a class of 15. There were too many classes full of 30 kids, and he somehow ended up in a class of 15. And I thought either she doesn't know him or he's really uncomfortable and he's not able to be himself. And then when we had our first parent interview with Kingsley, I thought, wow, they really understand, she really understands my son so well already. And then she was talking about, okay, you know, he has a lot of passion, a lot of great ideas. And then I want to work with him on how he can bring others in and how he can communicate effectively with others. And I was just thinking when I finished the call, you know, most adults can't do these skills. There's a lot of us are missing some of these critical things. And again, like they're essential for life. And if you start building those in kindergarten, just think of where you can go. So I think that's the main change I'd see, is just that focus on the whole person, understanding each individual child, their strengths, where they have opportunities to grow, how they can continue to build. And I really see now that he is able to grow as a whole person and not just academically.
Thank you. So Jessica, was there anything else you wanted to add to that, the biggest impact that the school has had on your son?
I would just say, sort of echoing what Erin said too, the accountability, like definitely confidence is huge, but even the accountability, like he's an only child. And I also just sort of feel like he's really stepped up and is taking on more leadership. And I can see it at home as well, but I hear about it at school at Kingsley. So that's the other part that I would add.
Thank you. I'm gonna jump back again. Erin, what does your child have to say about Kingsley?
Yeah, I think my son would tell you that it's a great school. He's so proud to go to Kingsley. When you hear him talk about his school, he just smiles, and he's always singing the Kingsley song. They have their own song and you always hear him singing in the background. And next year his little sister's going, and he is also so excited for that. He's always bragging, oh, my sister's going to be here. They both wanted to go to the camp. Kingsley runs a camp through the months of July. So they both really wanted to go together, but she has to get a little bit older. And I'm really excited for that because it's been a little different with COVID, but I know that Kingsley does a lot of programming, you know, Project Fridays and bringing the kids from all the different grades together. And so I'm kind of excited for that because normally in a public school, like your kids would just go their separate ways and they'd never see each other. And my two kids have a really close bond. And I'm really excited that during the day, they'll get sort of little bits of time together, or during the week, they'll have a bit of time together. And it won't just be that kind of after school time, that they can keep that connection.
I think it's very interesting that you say that because Natasha knows all about the Project Fridays and the whole school. And Erin and Jessica, your kids are two passing ships in the night because we haven't been able to do it. Now they've both been at camp, so they've been introduced to each other, but for the first time in a long time, when we're in a room and the kids are like, who are these people? Because otherwise, it's exactly what Natasha has been talking about, that family. And it's not just the parents, it's the kids. They are family, and you know, the mentorship that you're both talking about, yet you have not even really seen the full scope of it is quite impressive to me, that stands out already. So I'm very happy to hear that. Jessica, for you, what does your son have to say about the school?
So definitely I would say the same. My son is very proud to go to Kingsley. Again, we were talking about a 9-year-old starting school. He had to wear a uniform. And so, you know, kids are so resilient. He showed up at school with a retainer that he got like a week before school started, a uniform and a mask. and at a new school. And he took it with stride, and he loves it. He loves uniform. He actually brought it with him the first few times we were going to visit family to show them what he wore to school. He was so proud of it. And it's funny because I asked him if there's anything he misses from his old school, and he said, just my friends. I just wish some of my friends would come. So he's a little bit of a sales guy. He's out telling the kids in the neighborhood, you should come to Kingsley. You should come to Kingsley. It'd be so much fun. So he loves it. He loves it. He's very happy.
Oh, that's awesome. And word of mouth never hurts.
That's
Never
right.
hurts. I'm going to jump back, Erin. If I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Natasha earlier. If the school were to be represented as a single person, what would its personality be like in only 3 words, and why?
Yeah, so my number one word, and this kind of came through in Natasha's as well, but I think it would be caring. And again, it just goes with the school with the great big heart, and Kingsley really walks the talk. And from the time that you walk in, you really feel that care. And Louisa, I still remember, I don't know if it was in one of the early messages at the beginning of the year, but we were getting ready to come back in person in September with the COVID protocols. And I remember you saying, we're just going to take the first couple weeks and make sure that the kids are comfortable. We're not going to worry too much about learning. Everybody's really been through a lot. And same thing, like coming from that public school year, I was like, okay, yeah, sure. But then it's really true. I really feel like that's the biggest kind of maybe light bulb for me, is that you really need that psychological safety and that level of comfort for anything else to happen. You can't push through. You have to have that first. And I think Kingsley really understands that. And it shows from the message from the principal, yourself, and it shows in all the teachers. And it really makes all the difference. So I'd say the first word is caring. And then the second word, I would choose engaging, because I think, again, it comes back to the themes and the extras. And again, like in the public school system, like, a couple things happen during the year and you're like, oh, that's cool. But like, I could tell you like 2 things my kid did in JK. I have no idea what happened. Whereas every week in Kingsley, I was like, oh, this is so cool. I wanted to go back to kindergarten. I was, and it's everything. It's so hands-on. They were sanding little circles of wood to make a kindness mobile. Then the next week they're painting this giant mural of a dinosaur, and they have all these little write-ups. And I saw the best printing I've ever seen my son do for that little dinosaur mural. Then, they're making applesauce, and they're peeling the apples, and they're doing all the different movements. They're doing, measuring and estimating with pumpkins. At the holiday season, this was so cool. They rolled out and baked their own gingerbread man, and then it ran away, and there were clues to follow all around the school. And it's just, you can see all the learning and all the fun, and everything is connected, from the poem at the start of the week to the story they're reading to the math and the literacy activities. You can just see how it's all tying together, and themes you'd never expect. Like at one point, they built a Roman town, and they were studying all about the Romans, and this is in kindergarten. It was really cool. Next thing we know, we're showing my son all the pictures from our honeymoon in Italy. We're like, look, we went there. We were there. You can see the ruins. So I think, just how much there is to really enrich and make the learning engaging. And then the third one I would choose is, I think, probably organization. Because I think you have to have that organization to be able to pull off that much. I think you can't just wing it and have all these activities come together. It really has to be coordinated, and it comes down, again, like the weekly communications from the principal, and then the teachers in regular communication. And if there's any little thing that crops up, again, the teacher is accessible, and whether it's in passing at your drop off or a quick call or a quick email, everything kind of flows really naturally. And I think that organization is really key to keeping everything together. So that would be my 3.
Thank you. So Jessica, it's your turn to pick 3 words. If you would choose 3 words that represent Kingsley as a single person.
I'm not gonna lie, I was worried that you guys were gonna take my 3 words, but you didn't. You touched on them. I think there's way more than 3 words, so that's good. There's definitely some similarities, but my first one would be enthusiasm. And I was gonna say fun, but I wanted it to be bigger than just fun, and that is just, everything is really encouraged, and everyone's enthusiastic, so in a good way, so that it really feeds people and the kids to want to do more and support each other. Like, I think it breeds more enthusiasm. And so I think, especially when you're younger, I feel like sometimes at certain ages they start to hesitate a bit on how kind of goofy and open they can be, and so I really have found that he sort of has pushed past that. And I just think everyone's enthusiastically fun and happy and supportive. The next word for me is inclusive. And you heard before that to me is something really important, because I think that it just continues to shape for our kids that different is good. Like I mean, I remember growing up, my dad said, how boring would the world be if everybody was like you? Like, you want to go meet people that are not like you and learn different things. And I think that that's really supported here at Kingsley, and that it's not about trying to conform everyone to the same way. It's trying to let everybody have their own voice and their own way of doing things, and showing that that's okay, so that you can build confidence in your way, not trying to, figure out how the next person is doing it. And then my last word would be compassionate. I mean, I guess that goes with caring and empathy and those other areas too. But again, I feel a lot that each student is treated uniquely and looked at uniquely, and then there's a working plan in place to help that child bring out the best of them on every step, from social activities to educational. And so I think, you can really feel how much the teachers and the staff care about the kids at school. The kids can feel it, the parents can feel it, and even just the other parents, like, you can feel it from other parents. I also found at the public school, sometimes it's a little bit harder to connect, whereas all of the parents are connected because they all sort of want the same thing for their kids. So that compassion sort of spreads out past the school as well.
Thank you. All right, we are getting some great insight to the school. If nobody else saw this, which I know is not going to happen, people are going to see this, but if nobody else saw this, it's just an incredible situation for me to hear all this thing. And I see that Natasha would like to add something. Please do, Natasha.
Yeah, let me lower my hand here. When Jessica was speaking about inclusivity and embracing difference, it made me think a lot about different, I know this is pre-COVID, but different ways of engaging with the community outside of Kingsley. And I think about some, like there are too many to name, but some that stand out would be the trips to go and hear an orchestra play. We got to partner and have the children's art exhibit at the University of Toronto, and it stayed there for, I think it was a month, and people could come and leave comments for the children as emerging artists. We had Indigenous knowledge keeper come in and work with the children around some Indigenous teachings. And something else that stands out to me is when my daughter was there, I can't remember which grade it was in, but there was a time where parents would come in and speak to the class about their work and their professions or their jobs. And so that was really interesting because children got so excited to see their family members come in, and other children got to learn so much, from just storytelling and sharing. And some folks would even bring in some of the tools related to their work and do some experiential, hands-on workshops, whether that's, we had someone come in who did cooking, someone who came in who was a dentist. There was a lot. And so between partnering with different community stakeholders and interaction with folks, in the broader community, it's really opens up children's worlds and minds to embracing and engaging with and celebrating difference and learning through that difference. And I think that that's been really, really amazing and something I haven't seen anywhere else.
Thank you. That's very important to show that span, right? So we've been speaking to current families, which triggered a thought in Natasha about the experience she had. And in fact, it was pre-COVID, and I'm hoping we all get back there again. So you're right, there's such a diverse amount of ways to be inclusive, and it's not just kid to kid, right? It's the whole community. Thank you, Natasha, for adding that. That's really important piece. So I have one more question for Erin and Jessica, and then I'm going to go back and ask each of you one last question. I think we still have time for that. So Erin, here is your question. How would you describe the values of the school and the values of the families in the school community?
Yeah, I think one of the key values, and we've said it, is inclusivity and just really valuing everyone for their differences. And you feel that too, even in COVID, when we're just kind of going in and out, you still feel, you know, really welcome and connected to the other parents that are there and the other families. And I think one of our hesitations, like my husband and I, when we were considering a private school, is that we didn't want this school, we wanted to have diversity, and we didn't want there to be a feeling of elitism or entitlement. So that was something that was really important to us. And I remember when we did the first tour of Kingsley, we both walked away and said, it's such a grounded school. There's none of that stuffiness, and it doesn't feel competitive at all. It's such a nice, comfortable environment. And because of that too, you really see that, you know, people know how to have fun, to just not take things too seriously. I think of during COVID, Mr. Williams, who teaches the phys ed and the French, he ran a few online dance parties and he was the DJ, and it was so fun. And it wasn't just the kids, you saw the staff, you saw the parents, like everybody just knew how to kind of let go and have a good time. And so I'd say that's just part of the core value, is just being sincere and genuine and knowing how to have fun.
Thank you. Jessica, same question. How would you describe the values of the school and the values of the families in the school community?
Well, I think that's sort of connected to a lot of what we've been already sharing too. And to Erin's point, I think, you know, the inclusivity is key, but the independence, you know, the creating independence and developing independence, I think is important. And again, I think once you've got those values in school, the parents a lot of times will naturally, especially when it's a smaller group, will naturally start to take those on as well and reinforce them. You know, respect obviously is a big one that I've seen in the school. Just little things, even just, you know, my son being a 9-year-old boy and coming and telling me that, you know, he had to write a letter explaining that he handled something he could have handled better and he had to sign it and just wanted to show me. And I was just like, I love this school. Like, it's just accountability and respect, and those values are so important. I think fairness is another value that I have really seen, in that, you know, it goes with the inclusivity, but I think I've seen firsthand, watching my son, you know, come back and share about the idea of fairness and what's right and giving people a chance. Even my son having some challenges, I've listened to the teacher, because I got to listen to a lot of the education happen right outside my office door during COVID. You know, I would listen to the teacher stop the class and take time and let my son read what he needed to read at his own pace, and really sort of set that foundation. And then the other thing that I put was transparency, because I think that that's been a big one as well. Louisa has done an amazing job of communication with us to share with us what's going on and what to expect, especially during a year with craziness of COVID, and having our system be a little bit different than the school board system. So really keeping us educated on that, and also being really open to hearing what the parents have to say and the different opinions and ideas from people. And you know, we had that one sort of all family call, which was great. And what happened afterwards was parents started sharing what was working for them at home. And we are trying this, maybe you want to try that, started exchanging more information. It's funny, we've been on this call and my phone is connected to Kids Messenger. 2 kids from my son's class have been trying to call him. He's at baseball right now. But that's, that's the middle of the summer and they're calling because they want to chat. So I think, there's so many values, but those are the ones that really stand out for me.
Can I maybe add one that I
Yes.
like? I would also say the sense of community, because when you think about the Play Space project and how much you've seen so many different parents, students, alumni all pitching in to paint posts, dig out gravel, fill tubes with cement. There's been people on giving up multiple weekends, working in the heat, and just all coming together to really realize this dream. And not everybody has kids that are still going through the school. It's people that really care about the community and what's happening at Kingsley. They really believe in it and they want to make it happen. And, similarly, coming back to school after COVID, people pitched in to have air purifiers, to build the sneeze guards, you name it, like everybody stepped up and everybody is really a part of the community at Kingsley.
Absolutely. I think what you just said made me realize that it's so much bigger than just one thing or one person or one idea. And I just realized how grateful I am to be a part of something that is that much bigger than just the thought of going to school. So thank you for sharing all this. I'm going to ask each of you one more question. I'm going to go back to Natasha, and I'm going to ask you, Natasha, what does it mean to you to partner with the school? How did the school meet your expectations in this area? Did we meet your expectations in this area?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was looking around when my daughter was young too to figure out what school would be a good fit. And like I said, her disposition is very introverted and shy. And, and so I knew she'd probably get eaten alive in the public school when we came for the interview process. And that was about 9 years ago. Time flies. I mean, it was right away, it was a click, it was, I had read about everything, all the materials, but going in person, I mean, the energy, it's just something you just clicks inside of you and it feels right. And so I am so glad that I made that decision then, because the values and the teachings and the confidence, like even the intellect, all of the whole person, her whole person has benefited from it. And I feel like Kingsley has given her the tools to ensure that she continues to be successful, even though she is in a public school with many, many, many more children, and it's a very big public school. But she went into it and it was a huge change, but she had the core foundation that I think will stay with her forever. That was a gift, because that nourished her spirit and her mind. And even when she went into public school, she was bored because she was way ahead of everybody. The level of education is really, really high at Kingsley. And so she thrived and she continues to thrive. And I really, truly believe it has a lot to do with the core foundation, core experience with the education system, and it might not always be the best currently, but she is aware because she's had other experiences of what it could be and what she can make it to be, right? And that gives her a perpetual sense of hope and vision, instead of feeling limited and stuck. And so, yeah, so I feel like the gifts, I mean, when you put your child in Kingsley, it's giving your whole family a gift that will last and does last a lifetime. So I think that that's what stands out to me.
Thank you so much. You guys
And so much so that she still comes to
Yes, she
Camp
does.
Kingsley. And she's a preteen now. She's in junior high. And she's every year going, can I go back to Camp Kingsley? So that says a lot, especially this age group of the tween life and the junior high. If they're asking to be a part of something, that says a lot to me. And she does, and she goes back every summer still, and her little brother joined this year as
Yeah,
well.
that's amazing. That's, that it is true. They come back. And I think that's the one
Yeah,
thing that they, people don't just leave and leave forever. So many of all these different groups do come back.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah. And I haven't really
No, you
left.
haven't.
Even though my daughter has left, I have stayed because I believe so strongly in Kingsley. I'm like, and I'm so thankful for the life lasting gifts that I mentioned, that I continue to, partake in volunteerism, to say, I want to continue, giving back and expanding and building this amazing school to help ensure that other generations coming up, and, cohorts and whatnot, can experience those benefits that my daughter carries with her currently.
Thank you so much. I was just looking over my other questions, and they're actually at this point, to be honest with you, you guys have answered everything. We've talked about, I was going to ask you about communication, but you've already answered them. You've really, I appreciate the time that you've taken, and just for our, the people that are going to see this and may not go back and watch it again. Some of the things that I took away from this, and the words that you three have presented, were things like enthusiasm, inclusiveness, compassion, fairness, respect, being connected, a feeling of family, transparency, encouragement, organization, engaging, and caring. So if somebody ever asks me to put 3 words down, I just can't. So I'm impressed with all of your in-depth answers. And I appreciate the time that you've put into this. I appreciate your candidness. I appreciate the fact that you've given other families an opportunity to look into your experience. It's not always easy sharing, because some of the reasons why people come to Kingsley are because they've had it tough somewhere else, and those things still, they matter, and you still feel them. So as candid and honest as you have been is of great value and insight. I do tours on a regular basis. I should have a little one of you on each of my shoulders, because this you are Kingsley. Without you, and without this experience that you're being able to share with people, we're really not there. So thank you. Seriously, I can't thank you enough for taking the time, and sharing such in-depth answers, to not so easy questions. Some of the questions were pretty tough. I truly appreciate it, and I think you're doing a good service to people that are looking for that something that they just can't put their finger on, and that Kingsley just might be that answer for them. So to all the people watching this, you have truly gotten an in-depth view of past, present, and probably future of where we're going, because I think what I've heard throughout this is that we're pretty consistent. So
Absolutely. And also know, and sorry, before I go, I just want to say that if you're thinking about coming to Kingsley, I want you to know that, at Kingsley, you are not just a number. You are not just a body. When we look at the site, it said, what I mentioned earlier, that mandate of children are seen, heard, and respected. And so are parents and families. Along the way, it's not always perfect, as fabulous as everything is. There are bumps in the road. And when bumps happen, Louisa, the principal, the faculty, they hold space for you to share your thoughts, your feelings, your concerns, and to collaboratively problem solve. So you don't feel left out. You feel very included in the solution finding process. And, it comes to create, I think, even more strength post, resolution of any issues. So you two, as family, as parents, are seen, heard, and respected as well. And that's super important.